Again, good morning. Now I am going to start from this chapter or just going through the first part. Okay. So, politics of planned development. So, what is the need of a plan to ensure development in the country? So, while bringing development, sometimes there are chances for displacement of people, then polluting environment and loss of livelihood. So, while doing or while planning something for the development of our country, chances for displacement of people, then polluting environment, then loss of livelihood. So, in democracies, while implementing a plan or while thinking of a plan for development, expert opinions are considered. Expert opinions are considered, but the final decision will be of the political decision. That means the decision of the people's representatives. Because always this section, people's representatives are in touch with the people's feelings. So, while planning for development of a country, key importance or key factor which is considered is the opinion or the decision of the people's representatives. So, after development, after independence of our country, the leaders of India decided that our development should be based on economic growth and social and economic justice. So, our development, the development of India should be based on economic growth and social and economic justice. Social and economic justice and economic growth. So, the government was thinking of a centralized institution to make these plans for development for the entire country. It became essential for a centralized institution. So, what are the ideas of development? We studied that development means different things to different people. It varies from one person to the other. If we take the concept of development of an industrialist, it varies with the developmental views of a farmer. And here also, urban dweller and a tribal man, their developmental goals are also not the same. Okay, so it is quite natural while planning for development, contradictions and conflicts might occur. So, even in India, during the time of discussion on planning for development, there were contradictions and conflicts. Different opinions were there. So, the countries are classified into developed and underdeveloped on the basis of ideas of growth, material progress and scientific rationality. So, at the time of independence, there were in front of India, there were two models of modern development. The liberal capitalist model of US and other European nations and the socialist model of USSR. So, during the time of this plan for development, there was consensus. So, or the leaders reached a consensus. Development could not be left to private actors. and need for the government to develop a design or plan for development. So there was consensus among the leaders regarding the development of the country. According to them, development could not be left to private actors, and the need for the government to develop a design or plan for development. So who should develop a plan for development? The government. So what were the factors that led to this consensus? Great Depression in Europe in 1930s. Then interwar reconstruction of Japan and Germany. Then economic growth of USSR in 30s and 40s. So factors led to this consensus: Great Depression in Europe, interwar reconstruction of Japan and Germany, and economic growth of USSR in 30s and 40s. So we studied about the Bombay Plan of 1944, and we also studied that the Planning Commission was not a sudden invention. It was not a sudden invention immediately after independence. Even before independence, our leaders and businessmen thought of plan for development. Okay. So in 1944, big industrialists, they got together and drafted a joint proposal for setting up a planned economy in the country. So this Bombay Plan wanted the state to take major initiative in industrial and other economic investments. So even though they were rich or big businessmen or big industrialists, they wanted the state to take major initiative. Who would take major initiative? The state to take major initiative in industrial and other economic investments. So early initiatives, the Planning Commission of India was set up in March 1950, and its chairman, the Prime Minister of India. So we got the concept of 5-year plans for making development in the country. We got this concept from USSR. So a 5-year plan means a plan for all its income and expenditure for the next 5 years. So the budget of the central and state governments have two parts: non-planned budget and planned budget. The non-planned budget is spent on routine items on a yearly basis. Planned budget is spent on a 5-year basis as per the priorities fixed by the plan. So a 5-year plan helps the government to make long-term intervention in the economy. So this Planning Commission was replaced by the Niti Aayog, which was set up in 1st January 2015. So in the first 5-year plan, it's period 1951 to 56. This first 5-year plan aimed eradication of poverty. And we already studied the Planning Commission chairman is the Prime Minister. So for each planning team there was a leader. So the first 5-year plan's drafting team leader was K.N. Raj. And what was the policy of first 5-year plan? India should hasten slowly. Slow development was aimed by the first 5-year plan, because it was decided that for the first 2 decades, fast rate of development might endanger democracy. So they gave, or they stressed, slow development. So in the agrarian sector, the agrarian sector was given important. Investment was made in dams and other irrigation projects. Then example, Bhakranangal Dam. Then focused on land reforms, mainly the pattern of land distribution. Unequal distribution of land was there, so focused on land reforms. Then it aimed to raise the level of national income. The planners aimed to raise the level of national income. The basic level of spending was low, so they sought to push the savings up. The total capital stock was low compared to the total number of employable people. Capital stock. Then people's savings rose until the end of the third 5-year plan. Then second 5-year plan, 1956 to 61. So it aimed rapid industrialization, stressed on heavy industries. So first one, slow development. Second, rapid industrialization. Then it aimed quick structural transformation. Even in the Avadi session of Congress near Madras, its goal was set as socialist pattern of society. Then government imposed tariffs on imports mainly to protect the domestic industries. Later it was criticized. Then the private and public sectors began to grow. In the public sector, all these were included: electricity, railways, steel, machineries, communication, etc. So this push for industrialization became a turning point in India's development. Then what were the problems during the time of second 5-year plan? Actually, India was technologically backward. So to get technology from the global market, India had to spend much to get this technology. Okay, India had to spend much, or more investment was made. So when more investment was made in the field of industry, there was the possibility of food shortage. Possibility of food shortage, because after the first 5-year plan, when the second 5-year plan came, much importance was given to the industrial sector. So balancing industry and agriculture became difficult. More importance was given to industry. Then third 5-year plan, 61-66. And this 5-year plan was not much different from the second one. So it also faced some criticism. Urban biased plan, then industry was given priority. Then under this third 5-year plan, heavy industries were given importance rather than the agricultural industries. So key controversies: agriculture versus industry. So the second plan emphasized on industrial India. So the rural India had to suffer. Industries where industrial sector was given importance, or it was emphasized, so rural India had to suffer. And according to one economist, Gandhian economist, J.C. Kumarappa, this person proposed emphasis on rural industrialization. So J.C. Kumarappa, the Gandhian economist, proposed emphasis on rural industrialization. Then another leader, Chaudhary Charan Singh of Congress Party, who later formed the Bharatiya Lokdal, he emphasized the need to keep agriculture at the center of planning for India. Agriculture at the center of planning for India. Then according to some others, to escape from the cycle of poverty, drastic increase in industrial production was essential. So different opinions were there. So according to a section, a group of people, to escape from the cycle of poverty, drastic increase in industrial production was essential. So at the same time, according to these people, the agrarian sector was also given importance. It should be needed to give importance to the agrarian sector to increase the production of food grains. So both these sectors, industry and agriculture, should be given importance. Then land reform laws were made and laws for distribution of resources. So land reforms laws and laws for distribution of resources were started mainly among the poor people, and proposals were made for community development programs. Then large sums were spent on irrigation projects. So land reforms laws were made and laws for distribution of resources, and both these among the poor people. Then proposals for community development programs. Then large sums were spent on irrigation projects. But still this 5-year plan became failed because of the lack of proper implementation. The landowning section, they were socially and politically influential. So this became failure. The government spent much on agriculture but couldn't solve the problem of rural poverty. The landowning section was socially and politically powerful or influential. So there was lack of proper implementation of the policy. Then public and private sector. So two models of development. I am not explaining these two, capitalists and socialists. And India followed the mixed economy. Mixed economy in private, agriculture, trade and industry. Then in public, heavy industries. So even though the agriculture, trade and industry came under the private sector, the government provided industrial infrastructure, regulated trade and crucial intervention in agriculture. Then mixed model also faced criticism. Parties and groups with left and right ideologies criticized. So who were the left and who were the right? Okay. So left people or who believed in left ideologies, they were in favor of the poor, downtrodden sections, and they supported government policies for the benefit of these downtrodden or poor sections. Then right believed that free competition and market economy ensure progress and no government intervention in the economy. Then according to critics, not much stimulus was given to the private sector. The area of public sector was vast, so vested interests created obstacles in giving licenses and permits for private investment. Then the government restricted import of several goods that could be produced in the domestic market, and by this the private sector didn't get chance to improve or compete. As the government controlled more things, corruption started. Then according to the critics, the government didn't spend much for public education and healthcare. Government invested in the fields where the private sector couldn't go. State helped private sector to make profit. Then the government focused on middle class not on the poor people. The state intervention, because of the state intervention, a new class emerged, the middle class, who got high salaries and they were not accountable to the poor people. Then poverty didn't decline. The proportion of the poor became reduced, but their numbers rose. Then what were the three challenges faced by India at the time of independence? Unity, then establishing democracy, then make development. And the third one became the most difficult to realize. The land reforms didn't take place effectively. Political power remained in the hands of landowning classes. Big industrialists continued to benefit. Poverty couldn't be reduced. Then plan for development aimed economic development of the country and well-being of all its citizens. The middle class could benefit and they became politically powerful. Then outcomes of planned development. First outcome, foundations, laid foundations. This plan for development laid foundations of India's future economic growth. Largest developmental projects were undertaken, mainly irrigation and power generation projects. Then heavy industries were included in public sector like steel plants, oil refineries, manufacturing units, then defense production. Then infrastructure for transport and communication became improved. Foundations helped the economic growth of the country in its journey of development. Next, land reforms. Next outcome, land reforms. Government attempted to make land reforms. Then one significant step towards this direction, abolition of colonial system of zamindari. Government could release land from the landlords who were not the actual farmers, and political influence of landlords became reduced. Then second outcome, second factor in this topic, consolidation of land. Small pieces of land were brought together or joined together so the farm size could become viable for agriculture. So these two reforms became successful under the land reform policies of the government. Abolition of zamindari and consolidation of land. Then another reform or another policy of government under the land reforms, ceiling of land. That means put an upper limit to land holding, to how much agricultural land one person could own. Then the tenants who worked under these landlords, they were given legal security against eviction. But these laws were rarely implemented. Then as the mobilization of farmers became impossible, these policies couldn't be easily implemented. Then laws remained only on paper. Then 1960s was a period of food crisis, so there were droughts, then two wars, then foreign exchange crisis, so it became a period of food crisis. And during this time the most affected region was Bihar. Then food scarcity sometimes led to malnutrition. Then during the time of food crisis, India was largely dependent on US for its food aid. The US forced India to change its economic policies, and later it was done. India changed its economic policies. So to ensure food sufficiency, the government adopted a new strategy for agriculture. The policies, the earlier policies of government was giving support to the farmers and areas that were lagging behind. But now the government decided to change its policies to bring about rapid changes. They began to give support to the well-off farmers and also areas with irrigation facilities. And it became easy for the government to increase production by investing in already irrigated land, and also it would be easy for the well-off persons to increase production. Then as a part of this green revolution, the government gave HYV seeds, fertilizers, pesticides and better irrigation facilities at subsidized prices. Even the agricultural produce was given price, very good price was given by the government. Then the beneficiaries of this green revolution were rich peasants and large landholders. Then as a part of this polarization, several regions became forward or agriculturally prosperous, especially Punjab, Haryana, Western UP, and several classes also became rich or prosperous, and some others remained in the backward community, okay, backward economic situation. So wheat production rose, then raised the availability of food. So two other effects we studied, the economic differences between the poor peasants and the landlords created conditions favorable for left-wing organizations. So this left-wing organization came to protect or to save these poor peasants or to mobilize these poor peasants. Then one community or one social section emerged, middle peasant section, the peasants who had medium-sized land holdings. So in many parts of the country, these people became politically influential. The later developments after the period of Nehru, Indira Gandhi became a popular leader and she emphasized state control over the Indian economy. Then end of 60s saw restrictions on private industry. 14 private banks were nationalized. Then announced pro-poor programs in support of the poor people. Then ideological tilt towards socialist policies. Private banks were nationalized mainly to promote the backward areas like agriculture and small-scale industries. So importance of planning began to reduce. Between 1950 and 80, the economic growth rate was 3 to 3.5% per year. So many people lost faith in these plans. And moreover, in the public sector, there was inefficiency and corruption. Then the last factor, attitude of the bureaucrats. They were not in favor of the poor people. Then Niti Aayog was set up on 1st January 2015. Last 5-year plan, 12th 5-year plan, and its time period 2012 to 2017, and it gave importance to health. Then the Planning Commission, which was set up in 1950, was dissolved in 2014. So I think you got this chapter very well. Next day we will start that alternative centers of power from the first textbook, part A. Okay.